Today I'm turning a wooden bowl, but this project didn't go as planned. A crack forces me to change the entire design, and what starts as a normal bowl turns into a fully hand-carved textured piece. Let me show you how this happened. I begin by drilling a 55mm hole into the blank. This gives my chuck a tight and reliable grip, which is important for a project where a lot of pressure will be applied during carving. Once the blank is secured on the lathe, I start shaping the exterior. At first I aim for a simple flowing form. I take long controlled cuts to establish the main curve. The wood is reacting nicely, but I take my time because I want the profile to be clean before committing to any additional details. As the shape develops, the grain becomes more visible and I can see how the lines of the wood will interact with the final form. This is one of the moments where turning becomes more than just cutting wood. It becomes a conversation between the material and the maker. While I'm shaping, I also pay attention to the balance and thickness of the walls. Even though I'll be carving later, the underlying curve still needs to feel natural. By the way, if any of you recognize this wood species, let me know. The color and grain structure are not immediately obvious and your guess might help. And here the project changes direction. As I refine the curve near the rim, I spot a small crack. It's not deep, but it's in a critical area where the wall would eventually be thin. If I continued with the original design, this weakness could open up completely either during hollowing or even later when the bowl is used. So instead of risking it, I redesigned the form. The new shape avoids placing stress on the cracked area and gives me more freedom to experiment with a carved surface. Sometimes the flaws in wood are not a setback, they're an invitation to try something new. Next, I prepare the bottom of the bowl. This is where the chuck will hold it later when I turn the inside. A precise and well-shaped tenon is essential. If it's too shallow, it won't grip. If it's too deep, it weakens the base. I take my time here, making sure everything is clean, centered and perfectly supported. This small detail decides how stable the entire next part of the project will be. While I'm shaping this tenon, I'm curious how many of you prefer using a mortise instead of a tenon. I usually go with a tenon for better control, but I know a lot of turners out there swear by a recessed mortise. Let me know what you use and why. I'm interested to hear your experiences. Once the base is ready, I switch to a scraper and go across the entire exterior. This step removes the small ridges that even a sharp bowl gouge can leave behind. Smooth, overlapping passes help me get a consistent surface from top to bottom. The cleaner this surface becomes, the better the carved texture will sit on it later. Any bumps or uneven spots would distort the pattern and break the rhythm of the carving. And something I ask myself often, do you prefer using a scraper for this part or do you finish everything with a gouge? For me, a scraper gives more control and a more predictable surface, but I know some turners like to rely entirely on bevel-supported cuts. What about you? I'd love to hear how you approach this stage. Once the surface is smooth, I cut two shallow grooves, one near the rim and one near the bottom. These grooves divide the bowl visually into sections. They also give the carved texture a clear frame, so it doesn't look like it's bleeding into the smooth areas. A simple detail, but very effective. Now the carving begins. This is where patience matters the most. Each cut needs to match The next one, same direction, same angle, same spacing. If the rhythm breaks, the entire pattern becomes uneven immediately. When I reach the end grain, I feel the difference right away. The fibers resist the blade, and instead of cutting smoothly, the knife wants to dig in or tear out. So I adjust my technique and follow the direction of the grain instead. This change in direction gives me clean cuts again and a consistent pattern all the way around the bowl. This is the kind of detail people often don't see in the final piece, but it makes a huge difference in how the bowl feels in the hand and how light moves across the surface. Tell me, do you prefer bowls with texture like this, or do you enjoy a completely smooth and polished surface more? I'd really like to hear your thoughts on this. Once the carving is complete, I start sanding the entire bowl, not just the smooth sections but the textured area as well. I work through the grits slowly from 120 all the way up to 320. On the carved texture, I sand with a very light touch, just enough to soften the sharpest high points without losing the definition. If I press too hard, the pattern would flatten out and lose its crisp character, so I let the sandpaper do the work and take my time. This part may not look exciting, but it makes a huge difference in how the bowl feels in the hand. Sanding the texture carefully removes the roughness while keeping the carved details sharp and pleasant to touch. And on the smooth areas, the higher grits help me get a clean, even surface before applying the finish. When the sanding is done, I apply our own finish to the entire bowl. The wood immediately absorbs it and the color becomes deeper and richer. The carved dents catch the highlights differently and the whole pattern starts to pop. This is the moment when the texture really comes alive and the bowl shows its final character. After finishing the outside, I turn the bowl around and begin hollowing the inside. This is where the shape becomes much more demanding. The curve is deep and continuous, and as soon as I start thinning the wall, I can feel that the bevel on my bowl gouge isn't matching the curve the way I'd like. The tool cuts well at first, but in the tighter sections it doesn't ride the bevel smoothly. It starts to push slightly instead of gliding. That's the moment I realized this gouge would work much better with two bevel angles instead of just one. In this part of the video, you can clearly see the original grind, a single standard bevel that simply doesn't follow the inner curve as gracefully as I need. Right after this clip, you'll see how I reshape it into a two-angle grind, and the difference in control is immediately noticeable. After shaping the inside a bit, I switch to the newly sharpened bowl gouge with two bevel angles. The moment this tool touches the wood, the difference is obvious. It rides the bevel much more smoothly, especially in the tighter parts of the curve. The cut becomes cleaner, the tool feels more controlled, and the shape forms with a lot less resistance. I hope the difference is visible to you as well when you compare these clips. The surface looks smoother, the tool doesn't jump or hesitate, and the whole cut flows more naturally. Let me know if you can see the improvement too. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Now that the bowl gouge has done its job, I switch to a rounded scraper to finish the inside. This tool lets me remove the last small ridges left by the gouge and blend the entire curve into one smooth, continuous surface. I take very light passes here, almost letting the scraper float across the wood. Too much pressure would create chatter, so it's all about control and patience. You can see how the scraper gently evens out the problem areas and brings the whole shape together. The inside starts to feel much more refined and the curve becomes clean and consistent from rim to bottom. For me, this is one of the most satisfying parts of the process. Now that the inside shape is finished, I sand the entire interior of the bowl. I move through the grids from 120 to 320, keeping the curve smooth and even without changing the form. As the surface gets cleaner, the grain becomes much more visible and I can already see how the finish will bring it to life. When the sanding is done, I apply our own blend of carnauba wax and tung oil. It gives the wood a warm, natural glow and protects it while keeping the grain sharp and clear. If you'd like to use the same finish, it's available in our online shop. With the surface polished, the inside of the bowl now matches the look and feel of the exterior. Now I remove the bowl from the lathe and add our Paipeia wood logo coin to the bottom. It's a small detail, but it completes the piece and gives it its final identity. And here is the finished bowl, a clean interior, a hand-carved textured exterior, and a warm natural finish that really brings the grain to life. This project changed direction more than once, but in the end, the wood guided the design, and I'm really happy with how it turned out. If you'd like to have this bowl in your home, it's available in our online shop and also in our Etsy store. And if you enjoyed this project, feel free to subscribe to our channel, like the video and share it with someone who might enjoy wood turning as well. Your support really helps us create more videos like this. Thank you for watching and I hope to see you in the next one.